Hello, Aaron. Nice to have you on the
Hi.
show. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks
Of
for having me. Excited for this.
course, me too. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How about you?
Excellent. It's days where I get to do this kind of stuff are my favorite days for sure. So it's always a good day when I get to talk to people out in the industry and help people find some work. Well, let's start by just having you introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Sure. Well, thanks to Chad for kind of teaming me up for this because I am a prospective career changer. Uh, couldn't have scripted that better if I tried.
Yes.
I am currently a teacher. I'm a music teacher. I'm an instructional
Mm.
technology coach for other teachers. And for the past year and a half, I've actually been doing some AI consulting where I do presentations, paid workshops, training on AI prompting, stuff like that. But my interest in all of this started about 11-ish years ago. My story has kind of a 1, 2, 3 go pattern,
All right, let's go.
where the first thing was, being in my young 20s, my first job. Can I move out of my parents' house? Can I get my first apartment? Can I buy a car? Can I buy an engagement ring? Right, all those sorts of things. Going through my budget and realizing, wow, how different would my life look right now if I didn't have this $400 a month student loan payment on my budget? The single greatest money lesson I think I will ever learn in my life just came from the mindset and the realization of how different that would be in the fire that lit under me. So that was one. Two was a very typical teacher sort of experience where you're young, maybe you don't start your 403B right away, and then you have someone who knows their guy that they hook you up with, a salesperson from one of the big vendors. So I went to this guy's office. All I knew was I'm young, that means I should invest aggressively. So he hooked me up, whatever it was, what it was, didn't think about it. Number three, a few months later, I got for a 23-year-old a really, really big tax return, $2,000, something like that. And what do I do with this? And like any good child of the 90s, I went to all knowing Google. And that's when the go button was hit because it did not take long before I went down the rabbit hole. I was reading The Intelligent Investor, Richest Man in Babylon, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Boglehead's Guide to Investing. I got on the Bogleheads forum. I was reading Morningstar, Wall Street Journal, Barron's, following Dave Ramsey, The Money Guy Show, absorbing all of this personal finance and investing content. I then realized, a couple months later, looking at my 403B statement, what's with all these fees? Why do I have so many? Exactly. Yeah. Why do I have so many of the funds in my portfolio? After reading Boglehead's Guide to Investing, I'm all about simplicity, three fund, all of this stuff. Why do I have high yield bonds? It doesn't make sense for me. And this is when I learned what a CFP was. And through the CFP board, I actually found a local financial planner that I made an appointment with to help me, move my stuff over to Vanguard and set up a new 403B. I was so out of place in this guy's office that the secretary looked at me like I had three heads when I came in and said I have an appointment. The guy, I chose him because I knew I could pay by the hour. The guy never even charged me because I was so different compared to his other client. All he said was, "Come back when you have real money one day." Yeah,
Damn. He actually
and
said real money.
something to that effect. Yes, like
Wow.
something like you'll have more money. Like yeah,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like come back one day. and
Hilarious.
and I think he's since retired actually.
Yeah.
Um, and in those following 8, 9, 10 years, I mean, man, this stuff hit at the right time. I got that apartment, I got that car, I got engaged, I paid off my student loans, I paid for 2 master's degrees out of pocket without any more loans, got married, bought a house, built that financial foundation for the future, and yet at the same time saw so many others in my peer group struggling with student loans, struggling to pay for their graduate degrees. Teachers, I'm in New York State, teachers were all required to have master's degrees, so something we have to do. Struggling with those student loans and trying to buy a house and feeling locked out of it because house prices here are really insane. And that really kind of tears at my heartstrings, especially being a teacher. If anyone's familiar with New York State, the pension is on tiers like everything else. And young folks like me, we're on tier 6, the newest tier. Full retirement age is 63. And a lot of teachers in my peer group feel like they're really trapped and that they can't retire until 63. And the reality is, no, you can retire whenever you want. You just need a plan for it.
Right. Yeah.
And this whole thing has gotten me really, really interested in financial planning as another type of career. About a year ago, for a variety of reasons that I don't need to get into now, I started to kind of doubt my future in the education field and started to think what else might be out there. And that's when financial planning just smacked me in the face one day, realizing all I had gone through, all I had seen, all I had learned the past decade, this is perfect for me because this seems like it marries the best of teaching. Just instead of students, you're working with adults. Instead of for me teaching music, now it's finance stuff. But it's all about those personal relationships and teaching people and helping them to grow on their own individual path. And through that work, making the world a better place. I know I sound really corny and cliche by it, but really kind of the best of teaching, but also with more of those business entrepreneurial sorts of things that I have grown more interested in that you don't really get to do as a teacher. So over the past year or so, I've done a few things. I got the Series 65 license. I did the Amplified Planning externship where I first came across you. I'm enrolled in a CFP education program right now. I joined FPA and I am just absorbing tons and tons of content, lots of podcasts on RAAs and what those business models are like, what the tech stack is like, all those sorts of things. And that's what brings me here to this moment.
Nice. So when do you think you're going to get to take the CFP exam? Like, what's your timing?
I don't know. My original idea, I started the coursework in August with the idea that I would take the exam in July. Um, I've been reaching out to a number of advisors, particularly career changers, former teachers who became advisors. And one person I spoke to brought up a really interesting point. This person went through the CFP coursework, but never sat for the exam because, as he put it, and I'm going to paraphrase for brevity's sake here, but he said something to the effect of a lot of the CFP coursework is about helping rich people keep their money, whereas a lot of what he sees working with teachers as clients are things that the CFP coursework doesn't go in depth on, like student loans, like, getting out of debt, those sorts of things, which has kind of made me think maybe I shouldn't be in such a rush for the CFP exam. Maybe I should slow it down and spend more time digging into those topics that the kind of client I'm envisioning are really going to like be an expert in solving those exact problems and then circle back to the CFP later after some real world experience. So I don't know when I intend to take the exam. That kind of would depend on a few variables.
Sure. Well, my advice is get it done because I agree with you conceptually. You're absolutely right. It doesn't teach you what you essentially need to know to work with those kind of people. Or really, I think it's really a competency exam, right? As opposed to an educational program, right? It teaches you all the things you need to know so that you can learn the things you need to know. But there is in this industry a bit of a gate, and the CFP is the key to that gate. And if you've passed the exam, it opens some doors that you otherwise just won't have open to you. So I highly encourage you, knock it out. The faster you get it done, I feel like it's easier because you're kind of getting all that done in your head, and then you get it in, and then you put it on the paper, you pass the test, and then you can focus on what's important, as opposed to having to hold all that stuff in your head for that length of time. It's one of those. I'd say the same thing if it was the CPA exam or any other kind of certification. They're good and to get done because it does open doors. So for what that's worth.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
So for when are you available to work? I know you have a job now as a teacher, and the CFP exam is probably a little ways off, if not uncertain. But what's your actual employment plan in terms of when you're available to be hired?
If I could wave my magic wand and I can get the exam done in July and pass that and start something new in August, that would be truly wonderful. If there's an opportunity that were to arise earlier, that would be really enticing. During the school year, I would have to give my school district 30 days notice.
Okay.
So a little bit of a time buffer there.
Gotcha. So a month away is definite, but your preference would be to start full time in August with maybe a little stuff before that, just in, part time here, getting started, getting to know you, but really starting uh, full force ahead, starting August after the school year, and you've had a chance to kind of settle and then start your new thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Good to know. And in terms of location or relocation possibilities, if it's not a remote position, what's available to you in terms of where you can work
My region is Long Island, New York.
in
Um,
Long Island? Okay.
yeah, on Long Island. If you know, you know. You're on the island, not in the island. Uh,
Okay. All right.
yeah. That's a thing here.
Sure.
Um, uh, Relocation is not an option for me,
Right.
unfortunately. I am,
Happen.
a train ride outside of New York City. That is something that I would consider if be going maybe a couple of days a week, but 5 days a week commuting into the city, I would really rather not
That'd be a
do.
lot. Yeah.
But Long Island is the region.
Right. Or maybe for the first few months, you might be able to commute into the city 4 or 5 days a week, but not long term, right? It would drain you eventually.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot
I'm
of
not
firms are
ruling
like
anything
that. It's
out.
like we want you in person for a little while, and then we're willing to let you go a little freer at that point.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not ruling anything out. The right opportunity is the right opportunity.
Sure. But ideally, it'd be something on Long Island. And I got that. I didn't mix it up again, right?
No,
It's
you got it.
on. Okay, perfect. All right, now I'm savvy. I'll be talking like a native soon. Um, so, what are your music is really interesting, and the crossover between financial advisors and musicians is way higher than you would expect, from my experience. There's a lot of financial advisors who are also musicians. I think there's a financial planning and music are both incorporate the emotional side of math, if that makes sense. It's taking mathematical concepts and putting them in a human delivery. Very different deliveries, obviously. One is focused on art and communication through, and having the math kind of behind it. And obviously, financial planning, the math is a little more front and center. So it's unsurprising. But are there any other pieces of your history that you feel like really make this new career the best one for you that you didn't already
Yeah,
mention, obviously?
yeah. The AI piece.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay, let's talk about
yeah.
that.
So my master's degree is in curriculum development and instructional technology, and my school district saw I was doing that, and they tapped me to do technology coaching for other teachers for a while. There have been different iterations of that position that I've been doing. And for a while, actually, I thought I was on a path to technology leadership, like school district director of technology.
Mhm.
So I was pretty early to the Chat GPT game and really jumped on that bandwagon real fast and did a lot of my own study, experimentation, playing around with it, observed some things, learned a lot about AI just as its own field of mathematics, and went to conferences, did some presentations. People were really interested in what I was having to say, particularly about prompting techniques. So I actually wrote a book on it.
Hmm, interesting.
Summer of 2024, I wrote a book. It was published November of 2024. And that, in combination with a couple of other conferences I presented at, have led to this kind of little consulting side business I have going on, where school
Amazing.
districts, organizations will bring me in to do presentations and workshops on prompting. I was just a keynote speaker at a math conference a couple of weeks ago, and I have some trainings coming up I'm doing for other math teachers and school technology directors in March and April. So one thing that I'd like to kind of point out about myself, I guess, is this entrepreneurial side of me that's really risen up the past couple of years. To go from middle school band teacher to keynote speaker at a math conference to workshop facilitator for technology directors is a pretty audacious series of leaps that I've been able to pull off. Not planned and not expected, but I think that says a lot about me and just kind of the ideas that I sometimes have, and then try to bring those to fruition, to have that discipline and sit down every day for my 9 to 5 for a summer and write a book that then I see published. Um,
Yeah.
but then along with that, this idea of AI and financial planning.
Mm.
I'm really, really interested in exploring this intersection. And I know, obvious caveat aside, AI can never replace that human contact, all that emotional stuff, blah, blah, blah. We know that. But there's, you hear the same arguments over and over again.
Oh yeah, I know.
But
Trust me.
I really do suspect that at least the little bits that I see as I pay attention to this content and I'm on the Facebook groups and stuff, I think a lot of advisors are discounting its potential. Um, Perhaps out of fear and hesitation, or just out of being overwhelmed by how fast it's evolving. When I wrote my book, I thought I had 3 to 5 years of it being valid, and it was 3 to 5 months. It
Yeah,
came out in November.
exactly.
By April, I stopped advertising. Like, I don't advertise it anymore. It's not
Sure.
worth it. It's obsolete.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm really interested in exploring what the AI tools are. I was listening to your last episode with Joe, and talking
With
about the
Joe, huh?
tech stack. Yeah, the tech stack with all these AI tools. And I got so excited, like, oh, I hope one day to actually have access to these things. I want to play with them. I want to see. You're talking about the one where it pops out different financial plans based on the prompting. That's the kind of thing I'm really interested in. As well as just opportunities for AI to assist with a variety of stuff. Just a couple weeks ago, I posted a question in the XYP and VIP Facebook group about how advisors are using AI. And someone posted a comment saying there's this new paper that mathematically proves AI can't do financial planning. So I asked for a copy of the paper, and I read through it. It is very, very dense math, didn't fully understand it. So I had Google's Notebook LM create a podcast that I could listen to walk through it. Then I had Claude break down the math for me just conceptually so I can understand it. And then worked back and forth with Claude, thinking there's value here. Because what this paper does, it's called, if anyone's interested and wants to check it out, Interdependent Integrative Financial Planning Theory by Michael Kothakota. And I went back and forth with Claude on this, thinking there's real value here in that this paper is basically saying, with a lot of dense math, how much a client stands to lose with a siloed effect. You have your accountant, you have your state lawyer, your insurance broker, your investment manager, but financial planning integrates all of these different domains. And so when you put that all with one financial planner, you can gain so much. Here's the math that proves it. And so I actually had Claude build a mini React app that I'm imagining could be embedded in on an advisor's website. Kind of like a prospect can kind of click through things. It asks, who are the professionals you work with? Do they talk to each other? When was the last time you checked this? Blah, blah, blah. And then it would point out, here are the gaps in your financial planning because you're talking to these different people. If you want to learn more, click here to make an appointment, right? Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So tinkering around with those sorts of ideas is something that I find myself really interested in when it comes to AI financial planning. So my AI chops and interest is something I'd like to kind of put front and center.
I'm glad you did. I think in that conversation with Joe Moss in the last episode we did, and in other conversations I've had with advisors at conferences and in my consulting and everywhere else, I'm giving everyone the advice that they should just have someone in their organization that they give the keys to the AI, buy them the whatever subscriptions they need to buy them, and let them try and play and find good ways to automate things and create better service and create new portals in the business. Because just someone with a subscription who can play around, who has a savvy enough insight, a little bit of coding, a little bit of financial planning, a little bit of knowledge around everything, can be transformative for any firm out there of any size.
Yeah.
So
When I
you're a
heard you say
twofer for
that, I was
sure.
like, yes, that's me.
That's
That's
me.
two of me.
Totally.
That is me.
That's great. So if you're looking for someone like that, here you are. So that's good. Thank you for sharing that. I think that is a great thing to highlight, and a huge advantage for you as you move into some of these firms, because a lot of them could use someone like you who's done the work to understand it, because there's no class you can go to these days that's going to teach you about AI. By the time the curriculum's developed, it's obsolete. You have to be on YouTube and Reddit and Twitter and all these places where these things are getting posted. And Claude code changes every day. Literally, there's new things. It's hard to keep up
It's a full-time job on its own, staying up to
on its
date.
own.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
you gotta be passionate about it because it's changing so fast. So, coming back into the financial planning world, because we can talk about AI all day, right? You should just come back on the show. We'll just do some live coding for everyone and create some solutions in a 2 hour block. I think
Hey,
would
you
be
know
super
what? No
fun.
joke. Prompt engineering for financial planners. Sign me up. Like that. Let's
Yeah,
do it.
absolutely. But I want to talk about like if as you're moving into financial planning and you're working with individuals, who are your people? Who do you like to work with? Where does your heart lie? Why did you get into this? Who are you trying to help?
I'll start small scale and then move bigger. So
Sure.
small scale, the obvious answer is teachers. That's my niche. Those are my people. Those are the things I understand. I understand 403Bs. I understand, at least in New York, how to think about the pension. I understand, salary schedule. Teachers have a unique decision point or a series of decision points to make, particularly early on when it comes to balancing things like student loan payments, or saving for retirement, but you have to get a master's degree within a certain number of years. And then you're also incentivized to accumulate more credits for salary advancement. So how do you balance these different financial goals?
Mm.
That's a little different from the standard advice of get your 401k match and then max out your Roth IRA and then follow this sequence, your financial order of operations kind of stuff. Um, and as I mentioned before, my heart really goes out to my fellow teachers who can't imagine doing this for another 30 years, right? They're like me. They've been doing it for 10-ish years. They can't imagine doing another 30 years. Teachers are getting burnt out. It's a real problem and they feel trapped. And I really like the idea. I don't want to help rich people keep their money. I don't. I want to help middle class people live life on their terms. And money is one of the most influential factors in that equation. So I like the idea of teachers, similar public servants with pensions, or people who are really maybe going through life transitions, like a career change or something like that. And then to get kind of super nerdy on a really big scale, um, this this is going to border political, but I don't mean it in a political way. It is pretty obvious that we are in a moment of transition in world history. And I find there to be a lot of fascinating topics related to this. For example, I find myself wondering what happens if the dollar loses reserve currency status? You can't say with any certainty that it won't happen 10 years out from now. So what if? What are the mechanisms in place? What are the paths on which that would happen? What will the world look like instead? And I know there are people out there who are also asking these questions and wondering, should I buy gold? Should I buy Bitcoin? If I buy Bitcoin, should I do cold storage? Like all of this sort of thing. Or should I just forget it all and buy guns and ammo? And
Depends on
I
your
did,
state,
but let's be
probably.
real. Um, and so I kind of like the idea though of a community of people who are just trying to figure out what will the world look like in 20 years and how can I keep my lifestyle robust and resilient or take advantage of anti-fragility and chaos and like stand to benefit long term. So a variety of different things, but those are the kinds of the people and the kinds of topics I find myself really interested in.
Amazing. That's fantastic. I've asked everyone else, like, you know, what their ambition looks like, and are they fast starts, are they slow starts, are they going to run really fast to be as successful as possible as soon as possible? I'm not even going to ask you that because I think everyone gets it at this point. So I don't think that's going to be a mystery to anyone that you are going to be a hard charging person who takes initiative and just goes for stuff. I think is pretty clear from my perspective. But you have any short things to say? If I'm wrong, you're like, no, actually I'm really chill. Like I don't buy it. But what do you have to say about that?
I guess I'll leave that as is.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear. You have Aaron on your staff, and you're gonna have to hold him back if you don't want him to start, transforming your entire organization through some combination of AI and other higher level thinking. So,
Or I'll just
Aaron,
eat up half your day asking you questions about stuff related to those ideas I have.
sure.
Yeah.
I love it. We could stay on here for hours talking about this stuff, but going to move past it. In terms of technical areas, what are the areas that really provide fascination for you, and what are the areas you kind of find boring?
Well, with the caveat that I have not gone through all the CFP coursework yet, even though I've been exposed to a
Fair.
lot of stuff through the externship and I have the Series 65. But I find investment planning is I feel like with investments, for most people, the kind of people I imagine working with, you only need to know so much. And then like, I'm not going to be doing derivatives trading and options and stuff like that. I don't have interest in that. Three fund
You already
portfolio.
talked about being a boglehead, so I think
Yeah,
we can kind of have a
exactly.
sense of your investment philosophy.
But I like the idea of retirement planning and with
Mhm.
investments in terms of balancing different kinds of accounts and asset location and stuff like that. I like the idea of life transitions. I like the idea of helping, right? If I'm successful with this career change, I like the idea of helping other people go through career changes as well. The idea of the sovereign individual and how, we won't have that 40-year career, we'll have four different 10-year careers or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
I like helping younger professionals with the basic foundations of budgeting and cash flow. Being 34 and having just gone through that season of life of building that foundation, I like the idea of helping others in their 20s and 30s build that foundation. Related to that, these are all people that financial advising as an industry generally has not been able to serve, but with the rise of the fee only and the advice only sorts of and fee for project sorts of business models, there's a lot more opportunity. There are a lot more opportunities for them. Insurance is something I find interesting, not with writing insurance policies, not with annuities, but with the idea of how many people are really thinking about what happens if I get sick or injured. Do I have an umbrella insurance policy? Do I have a disability policy? I haven't done the estate planning course, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of overlap there with insurance and estate in terms of this playing defense and making sure I'm covered in the event of a black swan scenario. Um, Tax planning is what I anticipate having to kind of power through because math is not my strong suit. And I also know that the field is saturated with people who are great with taxes, whether they're CPAs who offer advising services, firms with CPAs. Why compete to be great at something that I know there are other people that are great at that I would rather work with, and then instead focus on what plays to my strengths, especially coming from a teaching background of that, working with people through those emotional things. Yeah, so I think that answers the question on the technical stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I treasure people like you who are interested in estate and insurance and not in tax, because it means that I can let you do that work while I do the tax work. We all have our specialties. And when you get into a group of advisors, everyone tends to, specialize in something that the other ones aren't, right? Because you just get more opportunities and more reps, and you kind of work as a team. And I would always call my friend Brian to come in on the annuities. Like, I just don't want to talk about it. Like, what should we do? Pension reviews, things like that. I think you and I would have been very complimentary. So outside of AI and all the other things you mentioned, any other big hobbies that make you interesting?
Uh, I'm going to add to the theme of the night with traveling. My wife and I
Okay.
like to
Yep.
travel a
Everyone
lot.
seems to like that.
Yeah, we were just in Scotland for New Year's Eve. We
Oh,
had a
wow.
road trip through the Balkans planned for the second half of July. Yeah, love traveling. In terms of what makes me me, my wife was nice enough to allow this to happen, but we named our dog POTUS, which is Puppy of the United States, just in terms of the kind of nerd that I am, which is great because, the car is Air Force One. When we go for a walk, we're hitting the campaign trail, like the crate is the residence. So we have a lot of fun. It's wonderful when your spouse asks you, "Did POTUS poop yet?" Um,
Yeah, she's probably not the only person asking that these days. Um,
and again, it's not like I'm a big fan of The West Wing. I don't know. I'm fascinated
yeah,
with politics and history and
yeah,
geopolitics and stuff like that. And so it's just a cute nerdy thing. But yeah,
amazing. Yeah, Madam Secretary is probably my favorite politics show over the last little bit.
that was a
That
good
one's a
one.
fantastic one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're just about at time. Any final words or things that people should know about you? I assume LinkedIn is a great way to contact you if people are interested in reaching out.
Yeah, LinkedIn's a great way. I'm taking a little bit of a risk here because I have not been very public with my current education network about my ideas of changing careers. I am connected with a lot of educators on LinkedIn, and so my LinkedIn content is, I'm not very active, but when I do post, it's mostly AI stuff. So if anyone's interested in kind of learning more about that, I do post some thoughts about working with AI, some prompting tips, stuff like that. That's kind of my public bridge between these two worlds. But I do check LinkedIn every day, so that is still a great way to get in contact if anyone's interested.
You said LinkedIn is direct messaging, you said, or where
Yeah,
else? Okay,
no, LinkedIn is still a great way to reach out to me.
great. Yeah, just send a direct message with the caveat that when you look at the profile, it probably doesn't look like you're an aspiring financial planner.
Exactly.
Totally fair and a good caveat to say. You don't want them to get confused when they show up and they're like, wait, is this right portal like, or right profile? Like, where are we at? So
Yeah,
makes
leaning more
total
into the
sense.
AI stuff.
Great. Any last words you want to share with the world?
Uh, I don't think so. I just
All right.
hope people got a good sense of me, and I really want to. I enjoyed this conversation, and thanks for all that you're doing, JD.
Well, thank you for being on the show. I know it is definitely it's a little bit of a risky, risky endeavor to come out here and do a pseudo job interview live in front of the entire internet. So I really thanks for your courage and your
Well,
willingness to come out
fortune
here and do
favors
some
the
fun
bold.
stuff. That's what I say. So I like your vibe. All right. Well, thank you so much. Everyone should know how to reach you now. Awesome job, and have a good